Welcome back to the channel, and with over 3 months of college football 26 under our belt, I think it is time we can start to offer up really great reviews and discourse in the second iteration of the rebooted franchise. Today I wanted to discuss ways that EA could revise the recruiting cycle within their game to make it not so mundane and less like a checklist, but also not hinder players who want to play more so than do recruiting, which was a big talking point they made last season when they first released. So let me know your thoughts below down in the comments and some of the things you would change in the recruiting cycle to make it more enjoyable or more realistic. I appreciate y'all tuning in, and be sure to like and subscribe if you enjoyed today's video. It's the best way to support the channel, and it'd be super appreciated if you all could do that. But with that out of the way, let's jump into these 10 things EA could do to improve recruiting. To kick us off, I think one of the most immersion breaking things when it comes to recruiting has to be how unimportant the scholarship offering process is in the game. By now, we all know that offering scholarships during the preseason recruiting is the meta to get a quick boost to player interest. If we modeled real life, many players are offered scholarships at least a year before their senior year, which is something we can discuss later. It's one of the topics towards the end of the video. But in my opinion, I think the system would work a little bit more fluid if we had to earn a level of interest with a player before we could offer them, or just have an implied system where scholarships aren't needed. And if you finish a recruiting cycle with the player and you're the number one team in their interest, then he commits to you. We already see this within college football 26 sometimes with recruits that are not recruited but have your team in the top spot. And once the transfer portal ends, they auto commit to your university without a scholarship offer or really any energy spent on the player. Those are my two preferred methods, but if we have to have another year where I have to spend 10 minutes to offer 35 scholarships every single year, I may go insane. Next up, I have a suggestion for a new feature that would vastly improve the recruiting battles they added this season. Adding in commitment cutscenes of players like we see in the Road to Glory mode would make the recruitment battles that much more electric. Instead of having to wait until you get to the recruitment screen or remember you were even in a battle to begin with, it would be vastly better to go into a cutscene to start the week of your player with your team's hat on a table and they choose to fake out your skull before committing to your rival. That would absolutely make me despise that player and add another level of immersion with just a simple cutscene. Having this for every player would be overkill, but for those select type battles and even the top 5 to 10 recruits around the country, also would be a very nice way to break up the weeks in between your games. In older versions of NCAA football, we had so many different iterations of scouting, whether it was a system in NCAA 14, which is very similar to today's model, albeit with a lot more stats that you can view, or way back in NCAA 06, where you got the stats for 40 times, verticals, and grades for things like awareness and hands. I think there is a ton of room to improve the current model we have. My suggestion would be to take away the current true rating system to either a range of stats or a grade system like we saw back in NCAA 06. I personally limit myself to only 40 to 60% scouting anyways in my personal dynasties, and I think doing a system where it doesn't give you the outright exact rating makes it not only more realistic, but also adds more emotion into the offseason process. As an added bonus, I would love to see EA add in some form of high school stats we can see as the season progresses, whether it's just an average per game or individual stats for each game that they play. It would be really cool to see. Also, can we bring back state All-Americans or Mr. Football accolades like we saw in NCAA 10 college basketball? That's one of the coolest features that I used to see in some of the older games and just builds a little bit more of realism into the game. With the introduction of College Football 26, EA added in dynamic deal breakers, and with most new features, it was good in theory but kind of fell flat on its face once we started to use it. Like, why in the world is my kicker who came to the school with an academic deal breaker now wanting to transfer because he improved in football? But other than that, those odd things that would happen, EA did make some good changes, like players also having a hidden deal breaker with the playing time, since most top players would eventually transfer due to that, even if their main deal breaker was conference prestige. I think adding another layer of variability would vastly improve this feature, especially in the portal. Instead of having an actual grade change as they progress, the whole deal breaker should change, similar to how players will care about playing time regardless, but they would also likely care about championship potential or NIL money. But on the flip side, if a player was previously good but has had a bad run in his first few years, they may not care so much about pro potential and want better education to go pro in something other than sports. All in all, I think this feature had some good roots. It just needs a little refresh and it would be really solid next season. Similarly to the deal breaker system, we need a refresh on the hard sell system as well. Even if it's just for time saving purposes, we need to reduce the amount of time it takes to scroll through the list and selecting options. Especially if I already know all the pinch info, I would like to see an option that is only the one that has all three, than trying to memorize all 25 cells and see what they align with and are scrolling through and trying to select each one every week. But more than that, I would like to see either a realigning of the pairings or some more versions added, since almost every linebacker that I have recruited wants to be a hometown hero or a football influencer. Another big thing to me in games with data sheet like systems we see in College Football 26 is that the UI is very, very good. This past season, EA did improve the recruiting screen with the ability to see how many players you need right above the player selection, and in the addition of when players are affected by coach abilities that reduce deal breaker grades, but I think we need a little bit more. One of my biggest pain points is having to scroll through menu after menu week after week to see if a player's hard sell is selected or what the player's skill are. In my opinion, we should either have a screen where all things are listed for a quick overview, or everything should be on one screen to begin with, because we do definitely have a lot more space that can be used on the screen. Another would be scrapping the 35 play hard caps to your recruiting board and scholarships, especially with the more hostile transfer portal. There are many times where you can't backfill all the departing players, and especially for CPU teams, they are left with way less than the 85 player limit, and that really deteriorates those smaller teams throughout the dynasty run. I'm sure there's a ton of other things that can improve here, but these were my two. So let me know in the comments what kind of UI things that you all would love to see in next year's game. Coming into our last few improvement, this is a relatively quick section. In games like College Hoops 2K8, we had the ability to scout players that were juniors and even younger during the year. With how competitive recruiting is during the senior year, it would be cool to give some smaller teams a chance to get in on the ground floor and get a step ahead with some players that are younger, or even give bigger teams something to do with their hours toward the end of the season if we could scout future seniors before the year is over. Another big feature I miss in some older games is the pitches and promise systems we had back in the day, with pitches being able to pit some things against other teams to give you a little boost against them was always unique. And with the promise system, I miss being able to promise a top recruit that he will start as a freshman to hopefully convince him to commit to my university over some of the big schools he may be looking at. While the coaching ability system, in my opinion, needs a full rebuild to something more akin to a tree revolving around positions rather than groups and skill sets, I think for recruiting specifically, we need a few more abilities to go around. Whether it's something like lowering the cost of sways or moving some abilities around like they did this year, having another season where the selections are the same will really stagnate the feature. And for my last change, I would love to see players dynamically move up and down in the rankings. This is definitely a tiny feature that really won't affect much, but it would be cool to see a player who I started recruiting as a 3-star and got to commit finishes the year as a 4-star, or on the flip side, a player who was a 5-star moved to a low 4-star because they had a really bad senior year. It just adds a little bit more variability into the player rankings, and it would just be an interesting to see throughout the season. And with that, those are my 10 things to improve recruiting in college football games. I hope you all enjoyed the video, and I hope you all like some of my ideas. Let me know in the comments what you all did like or what you all think that you all should do. There's probably a ton of things that EA could do to improve the game, and these are just 10 that I thought off the top of my head. I hope you all enjoyed. I'm glad y'all tuned in, and as always, I'll catch you all in the next one.